Now, under Dr. Keith Rowley at the time, earlier this year, there was already approval for the Independence Parade. And that approval, at that time, it was going to cost some $1.5 million. So we would like to ask this government, when you talk about saving millions of dollars, with the largest cabinet we have in Trinidad and Tobago costing some $2.7 million, what exactly it is are you talking about? Because we also know we cannot ignore the fact that the Independence Parade is also an economic activity for a lot of people. A lot of small vendors and basically generating a lot of economic activity, not just for vendors, but for business persons. So if it is that there is some serious threat, this government really needs to provide us, the Prime Minister in particular, needs to give the country some sort of assurance that the Honourable Prime Minister is aware as to exactly what is this threat. Because you cannot have your own ministers of governance giving a different story on each and every occasion. And I want to make the point as well that about the importance of looking at the Newsday of yesterday, where they indicate that the police and military agencies have unearthed a plot to kill Minister Wayne Sturge. And let me tell you why it is important. Because what I find interesting is in that article, if you have read it, they have given us so much details as it relates to this threat that my question is how it is that an arrest hasn't yet been made. Because if you read the article, and again, I'm looking at it, threat against Sturge. It specifically says that while the immediate threat has been disrupted, according to the police commissioner, several other co-conspirators are not yet in custody. They go on to say that, according to intelligence report, the threat is linked to the minister's refusal to comply with demands to install hand-picked people in both state and constituency level jobs. Interestingly, among the identified conspirators is a lawyer with close ties to the ruling UNC administration. 2 illegal quarry operators and a senior military officer. Now, they didn't say 3, they didn't say 4, they didn't say 1, they identified 2. And they talk about the fact that, according to the police, one of the illegal quarry operators is from the Toko Sandy Grande constituency. That is where the Honourable Minister is from. And the other from Santa Cruz. And then they speak about a senior military officer has in the past been seen driving an SUV owned by a quarry operator. They are providing us here with all the information. I mean, that is amazing. So is it that they are telling the public that you have all of this information? You know the quarry operators, you know the person from the military, you know the car he's driving, and these are the circumstances that is related to the whole issue of the parade and the cancellation of the parade, and they are not able to arrest these persons who they clearly are identifying that they know. According to a sensitive report submitted to the police, the security team of soldiers and other agencies guarding the minister had to take evasive action to protect Sturge after a suspicious car with 4 men approached the minister as he was with 2 other lawyers during a visit to his constituency. Now, the question arises, they are giving us all of this evidence. And what is the population to believe? Is it a question where they are not able to deal with these people? They are not able to address these issues? They are not able to deal with these people who are allegedly involved in criminal activity? So I just want to make the point that as a responsible opposition, we have concerns, we have genuine concerns. If it is that the government, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Home Defense, if you have all of this information, yes, we have to be concerned. But the concern is, what is the reason why they're not able to arrest these people if they have all of this information? So that if they took the decision, okay, you want to cancel the parade and you have concerns, we must remember that it is the said government who told us, and if you recall the Prime Minister saying, crime is down, you should feel safer. And having said that recently, at the same time, they are now saying that there are all of these threats. So I want to say in no uncertain terms that we have always had a proud tradition of having our Independence Parade. We are calling on the Honourable Prime Minister to clear the air. We have heard from several of your ministers. The country now wants to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Morning to the members of the media, our listeners and viewers. I'm here on behalf of the opposition to deal with some of the matters related to education. I want to first offer our congratulations of our political opposition leader as well as members of the opposition to our students who recently performed very well in the CXC examinations of 2025. I want to congratulate our students as well as the teachers and the parents and the support staff, the administration, who would have been working very hard to achieve this result. I want to remind the country that we spent 2 years in the COVID-19 experience in the education sector. And indeed, from February 2020 until April 2022, our students were at home. And the effects of that COVID-19 experience are still being mitigated throughout education sectors, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the world. I am sure there are parents who can tell you, and I certainly would have had students, children who would have experienced this situation, and it does have a very long-lasting effect on our children. And so the education sector is still in recovery mode. And from 2022, plans were put in place to get the results we are experiencing today, where our children can have increasingly successful performances at their terminal examinations. So the Ministry of Education would have instituted in 2022 the Re-Engaging for Success plan. And that was a wide-ranging plan coming from the ministry and being implemented in our schools so that our students would be able to increase their performance in the terminal examinations and also achieve a better adjustment to their school life coming back out to school after 2 years at home. And the aim of that plan was to ensure that we had increased success in the SEA, which is the terminal examination of primary school, as well as the CXC examinations in the secondary system. So that plan would have been driven by data, and it was really focused on 80 primary schools and 26 secondary schools. And these are the schools where we saw the greatest of difficulties in terms of performance as well as discipline. And so the Ministry of Education would have been implementing this plan throughout the years from 2022. And what we have seen, and we are very happy to see it, is the steadily increasing performance of our students coming from a serious dip in 2022, where the major effects of the stay at home were felt by our students. And so we are very happy to see that increase, and we want to understand from the Ministry of Education, one of the major plans and that was implemented in that time was the Vacation Revision Program. We noticed that that program was not implemented in 2025. So we are asking for the Ministry of Education to continue to pay attention to those schools, and we would like to hear from the ministry and from the minister what exactly are the plans. We see that the Vacation Revision Program was implemented. What exactly are the plans going forward to ensure that the level of steady success and increasing success that we are seeing, we can see that in 2026. So we would like to hear from the Minister with regards to the plans for this. Another issue that I'd like to raise at this time is the issue of e-examinations. CXC has been moving towards the examinations. In fact, they have been moving to have all of the paper ones, which is a multiple choice paper, as electronic papers, and they have other plans to ensure that the cost of examination goes down, as well as the reliability, because we would have seen during the COVID experience, CXC also grappling with changes in how the exam had to be administered. So I know that the Ministry of Education had made a commitment to the children of Trinidad and Tobago to have laptops delivered in September. We would like to hear an update with regards to that. However, that laptop program was only dealing with Form 1 students. But when we are speaking about the e-examinations, that really has to deal with how the schools are being resourced with devices so that the Form 5 and Form 6 students can do e-examinations, which is a much cheaper way and will help to bring down the cost. I know we are grappling with cost in this country. So I would like to know, apart from the update as to what's happening with the Form 1 laptops, what exactly is the ministry planning to increase the level of e-testing at the Form 5 and Form 6 level, and where are the devices that will be provided to be able to accommodate this? I'd like to hear from the opposition a bit more about that. No, the opposition would like to hear more about that, right? The other thing I would like to raise at this time is I've seen that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has continued to join with the Ministry of Education to put the police, partnering with the police, to put the police into schools to assist with discipline issues. This was a program that has been ongoing for some time. In 2022, we would have re-engaged the police on this matter, and so we would have been seeing success. In some schools, we would have identified certain schools where the police were collaborating, and so we would like to hear a bit more about this, and we want to also hear about the plans of the police to patrol outside of the schools at the end of school, because what we noticed is that once the police were involved in the school, there was a reduction of violence in the school. However, outside in the urban areas and so on, that was also an issue. So we would like to hear a bit more about how the implementation will be taking place. And the last issue I'd like to raise from the level of the opposition, also as a member of parliament, and I'm sure all members of parliament are getting the same questions, is about the book grant. We would have implemented this as government, the PNM, in 2024, and based on our experience at that time, we would have moved up the schedule for application. So applications were actually between December 2024 and January 2025. So therefore, in April, when this government would have taken office, those applications would have been well in and being processed. So at this time, we are about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks since the government has extended the vacation period. We are about 3 weeks away, and we have not been hearing anything from the Ministry of Education with regards to those grants. And parents are very concerned. We also have the situation of thousands, tens of thousands of persons who are out of jobs now, and who are depending on that book grant to be able to assist their students. And we have not heard anything, and we would like to hear from the government, what is the update with the book grants? When will they be administered, seeing that the applications were in when the government would have come in? We want to hear what is happening with those book grants. And those are the issues on behalf of the opposition that we would like to raise with respect to education. Thank you very kindly.
This one? Which one is the mic? Trying to figure out which one is the mic. Good morning, everyone. I would not be so polite as the Honourable Leader of the Opposition with respect to the TikTok that Minister Tanku published yesterday, I believe. I can only think of one word to describe it, and that word is asinine. And I say it's asinine because every Monday, the entire UNC cabinet assembles in some part of the country at night. If somebody wanted to exterminate all of these high officials, they're all there in one spot. At the Independence Parade, you have all of the divisions of the Army, Coast Guard, Air Guard, Police, Fire Service, and various paramilitary organizations. I think if I did an estimate of the number of persons under arms at a parade, I would say about 1,000. If you look at all the persons marching with guns and all of the other police and other protective services around with arms, I would say about 1,000. And therefore, if the cabinet feels safe to assemble in some area of the country at night, would there be 10 police guards in them? How can they feel unsafe at the Independence Parade in the morning, in daylight, with 1,000 armed persons around them? That's why I say his comment is asinine. And I believe it's an attempt to obfuscate. It's to create a red herring. It's to distract from the real issues. Because I just looked at the notice for the supplementation of appropriation that we got when we did the mid-year review in the Parliament some months ago. And when I look at the Ministry of National Security, which is how it has to be supplemented, this will change when the new budget comes in, but at this time they have to supplement Head 22, Ministry of National Security. That always happens when you have a change of government and a change of designation of ministries. You put it into the original head, and then you will do an adjustment at the next budget when you print the new documents, the new estimates of expenditure. And all I see is a request for 6.2 million for a shortfall in allocation under contract employment, a request for 3.7 million for food at institutions, and a further request for a further 4 million for more food at institutions. I don't see anything inside here to supplement the expenditure for the parade. And as the former Minister of National Security pointed out, this was brought to Cabinet for approval earlier this year, and a budget of 1.5 million was approved, and there was no issue with a shortfall of funds. And therefore, I would suggest that Minister Tanku concentrate on his portfolio rather than wasting time with this foolishness. The only people I know that have gang affiliations, it is rumored, are members of the present administration. And that's in the newspapers, okay? I say it's rumored. Now, there are a number of late payments taking place every month now. Staff at MTS, in the regional corporations. There was a month not too long ago when the constituency staff that are paid by the Parliament did not receive their salaries on time. I've heard about late payments in the Eastern Regional Health Authority. And apparently, and in the regional corporations, you would have seen the Minister of Local Government come out and ask for patience to deal with a problem of non-payments of salaries and wages in the regional corporations. That is something that the Minister of Finance should attend to. I also heard the Prime Minister make an allegation, one of her usual scandalous, erroneous allegations, that the PNM government had sold Trin-City Mall to its friends and financiers for peanuts. Absolute rubbish. The sale of Trin-City Mall is being managed by a court-appointed liquidator from the firm of Grant Thornton. This liquidator was appointed in 2017. And the process approved by the liquidation judge is that if any of the assets of CL Financial are to be sold, there must be a transparent procurement process, there must be a valuation, and there must be justification for the sale of these assets which are submitted to the liquidation judge for his approval. In the case of Trinity Mall, the liquidator took a long time to initiate that process, and by public advertisement invited bids for the purchase of Trinity Mall. It was actually done twice. In the first round, Ansa McCall had made the highest bid at somewhere in the vicinity of $600 million. But unfortunately, CLICO took a long time to produce necessary information with respect to the title for the mall and so on. And Ansa McCall then withdrew its offer. It went back out again and was eventually approved for a consortium for a price of $500 million. This is all in the public domain. So it's also, I wouldn't use the word I used for Minister Tanku. It's also ridiculous of the Prime Minister to say that the P&M has sold Trinity Mall to its friends and financiers for peanuts. Especially since that liquidation, the P&M has no say whatsoever in the liquidation of the assets of CL Financial, because the liquidator controls 51% of CL Financial. I also want to talk about this Exxon-Mobil agreement. There are a number of issues that have not been given proper attention. For example, what was the procurement process? Was it a sole select? That question has not been answered. In addition, what are the terms? ExxonMobil, it is reported, got a very good arrangement with the government of Guyana for the first production of oil in Guyana, where there was a royalty of just 2%. And that was an issue in the last Guyanese election, where the former Guyanese government was accused of selling out to ExxonMobil. Because we in Trinidad and Tobago, we charge a royalty of 12.5%, not 2%. So there are a lot of questions that have not been answered about this matter. What are the agreed terms? Secondly, this reminds me of a situation way back in, I think it's 2012, 2013, sometime like that, where the Honourable Prime Minister appeared at a press conference with two glass jars of oil, and spoke about the bounty that was about to come to Trinidad and Tobago from the Soldado field, which is where these glasses of oil were from. We haven't got 1 cent yet, 13 years later. But the point is that in this deep water region that an arrangement has been signed with Mobil Exxon, no seismic survey has been done. That would take about a year. No exploration drilling has been done. That will take about 2 years. And then to go from discovery to production is about 7 years. So I would say minimum 10 years before the first barrel of oil is produced in that deep water area, if it is at all. And then the arrangement that they appear to have entered into is that Exxon must recover all of its costs first before any revenue comes to the government. So maybe 12, 13 years down the road, if oil is discovered there, the country might get some revenue. And while it's a good thing that a major oil company has decided to invest in Trinidad and Tobago, you're talking revenue a decade from now, which is really not relevant in the modern era. I'd also like to talk about the alleged 10% offer to the PSA. I said in a public meeting previously that I had been told that what the PSA was told after the election was that the 10% was really a combination of 4% for the 2014 to 2016 period and 6% for the 2017 to 2019 period. We had offered 4% and 5%, 9%. And that was our opening offer. And we had every intention of going to 6 for the second one, so it's the same thing. The PSA told its members that that 10% was for the first period, for the 2014 to 2016 period, not for a whole 6-year period. So that needs some explanation as well. One of the last points I'd like to make is that Republic Bank cut its credit card limits a couple of days ago by 50%. Now the media, I always experience this when I'm in opposition. I see how soft you are on the other side. If I was the Minister of Finance, I would get a barrage of messages, emails, questions coming from the media as to what is the government doing about this. But of course, we're not seeing that now. You're always very soft on them. The minister has not been called to explain what the government intends to do about that. And it is in stark contradiction to what was said during the mid-year review. Because in the mid-year review, what the Minister of Finance said is that they are going to solve the problem with Forex in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm going to read from what he said. Government's economic rebuilding plan encompasses foreign exchange solutions. Is this the solution to foreign exchange in the country? To cut credit card limits by 50%? You see, I did a tweet a day or so ago that I think I'm living in Animal Farm, where up is down and left is right. Because if the solution to our Forex problem is to reduce citizens' access to Forex, then I'm in Animal Farm. You all have not asked the minister what he intends to do. I saw something in the Newsday where Newsday asked him to comment, and he said, I'm not commenting. I have to talk to the banks first. Now that's absurd, because when I was the minister, every time the banks decided to cut their credit card limits, they would give me fair notice and fair warning well in advance, and also explain that they just did not have the foreign exchange available to them to cover the credit card transactions, which I've made the point had increased from 600 million US under the UNC to over 2 billion US per year under our administration, because people started to use credit cards to access foreign exchange. Now, there are many other financial topics I could talk about, but I don't want to monopolize this press conference. I would simply ask the media, why don't you ask the minister what's going on with the CL Financial liquidation? Ask them why Proman came to see the Prime Minister a couple days after the election, and ask them whether it involves a deal that might end up in the citizens of this country losing out on hundreds of millions of dollars in repayment of the CLICO bailout. Go and ask the minister that, because I understand that the minister has agreed to a proposal that may not be in the best interest of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. You all, any one of us here want to ask any questions? Joe? Is there a mic?
Yeah, you need that, you know.
You want to go to Mr.
Sure.
Imbert?
Sure. Good afternoon, Akash Samaru, Guardian Media. I just want to firstly point out the irony that you see in the media not holding the minister to task when you had us blocked on everything. So we couldn't call you at all.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
I'm talking about in press conferences, which I held on a regular basis, where I answered every single question. And I note, I don't see editorials, I don't see commentary, I don't see articles asking the minister what's going on with the finances of the country, for example. How is he going to finance the new deficit of $10 billion? That's the point I'm making.
Okay. He seems to have borrowed a page from your book because we can't get him either when we want to get him. But I want maybe something in the office. I don't know. I want to ask you about. You would have said that in the mid-year review, you noticed they didn't ask for anything to cover the independence day parade. So are you suggesting that since then they knew they weren't going to have this independence day parade?
I'm suggesting the opposite, that they knew they had the money to pay for independence. And I want to make the point. A military parade is standard in many countries in the world to celebrate your escape from colonialism. It's an important thing. And therefore, the whole issue of money, that has to be secondary, okay? To celebrate our independence, our emergence as a sovereign nation in the world. That the whole question of spending money on that has to be secondary. Of course, if you don't have the money, you have a problem. But I did not see any issue, and I did not hear any of the ministers say that they did not have the money to pay the $1.5 million for the Independence Parade. And if you add up how much they spent on the Modi trip and how much they spent on the ceremonial opening of Parliament, the two combined cost more than the Independence Parade. So it's a question of priorities.
Madam,
Just one
sorry.
other thing as well. You can also look into the back pay for the sitting government that would cost almost over $13 million.
Much more.
Madam Opposition Leader, I wanted to ask you, Saturday you would have asked some similar questions with respect to asking government, what's the real reason? Is it finances? Is it security? You wanted some clarity. If there's a threat, can you tell us more? I would have taken those questions to the Legal Affairs Minister yesterday.
Yes.
We have an article on it today where he would have said that it was purely national security issues, nothing to do with money. He said the money was a consequence of not having the parade. But he also said
Why
that...
did he then say that they are saving millions?
Well, he
of
said as a
dollars?
consequence of not having it, they will save, but that was not the reason. That was the
Okay.
answer he gave to me.
Okay.
But he also said that you were being reckless and irresponsible and mischievous by trying to, as he said, create this clandestine reason for not having the parade that doesn't exist. And he said your question for more information is also irresponsible. And forgive me, but he said he questioned if you were sleeping last Friday. And he even went as far as to call you incompetent based on the questions you asked.
Well, I mean, they could call me whatever they want, but the point about it is not only me. I mean, the entire country is asking its questions about it. And it's very important. The Honourable Prime Minister, as the head of the Security Council, has not really addressed this matter. And the country would like to hear from him. So yes, he could call me whatever he wants to call me. But the issue is the Independence Parade, traditionally, is something that's very important for people of the country. And I also make the point that you can also demonstrate very clearly in this parade that the gangsters, the criminals, I mean, the might of the army, I mean, the strength of our military, it's very important. I mean, you have a scenario where, if you recall recently, that the head of the commanding officer there at the regiment was sent on leave for 605 days, and after one day, he was recalled. So who's responsible for this? I mean, and the head of the prisons was also sent. So that in the context, when we are talking about military, when we are talking about crime, when we are talking about safety, it's not an isolated event at all. So if it's anybody who's been reckless, it's the government. Right? I mean, and listen as well to the comments of Dave Tanku. So to make the suggestion about being incompetent, he should check himself.
You all have said that 1.5 million had been set aside for the parade. Now, I know the military has functions, the president has functions,
And then they would have sent out invitations.
right?
Yes.
Is it possible that what was allocated in February was inadequate?
I cannot say. I mean, but you...
I will say something. It was based on
Yeah,
previous
come.
years. It would have been based on previous years'
Okay.
expenditure. The minister would have presented historical facts and indicated how he came up with that request for 1.5 million. There would have been a breakdown. It was not inadequate. Okay?
And
If I may, the question of it being adequate or inadequate is not really the issue. And Minister Imbert spoke to it. It is your priority. Because I've been a minister for 10 years and I've experienced ministers here. If you have a situation where you have inadequate funds, there are many ways by which you can, via transfer, to ensure that you have the funds available to do
Right.
what is important.
Right.
So it is not a question of whether the money is there. It really is a question of, is this important enough that you think you want to implement it?
But if you are having you're in financial distress, you mentioned the late payments and so on. If the government is really in a financial crunch now and cannot afford even salaries on time, is it a valid enough reason to say, okay, this is, I don't want to say unnecessary, but this is not an essential?
Well, then say so.
Right.
But exactly what opposition leader said. What is the real reason? We're hearing one thing from one person, another thing from another, aspersions being cast about criminal engagement with the PNM and whether the PNM is trying to get the ministers there. What is the truth? I think the opposition leader has asked it a number of times. If it is financial issues, then say so. But even if that is the reason, is this a priority? There's a huge cabinet that's being paid. Opposition leader said 2.7 million monthly to be able to sustain the biggest cabinet that we have seen in Trinidad and Tobago. So we are not convinced as the opposition, and we are asking, what is the real reason?
Right, because I'm taking minister's
Let me just also take the point. I raised the issue of shortage of ration down and at the defense.
Right.
Force. Okay. So let's take that. I mean, nobody has commented. You're talking about me being reckless and incompetent. Deal with that. Is it true? It is, or is it not true that there is a shortage of ration down in the barracks?
Right.
And that there's a shortage of resources. And as it relates to basic things, as it relates to military wear and so on, going to the laundry, that there's a difficulty. I mean, the truth is, and that's why I'm saying, where's the Prime Minister in all of this? Because if it is that you are having financial difficulties, then I think the country needs to know. Because if you recall that during the midterm review, they were saying that we were going to crash the economy. If you recall all of this, but they came for the environment, even as it relates to CPAP, they asked for an additional, was it $60 million for CPAP? And everybody went. So what happened to that $60 million if there's no CPAP since you had the midterm review?
Well, we can't know that feeding the military is sometimes an expensive exercise.
It's expensive, but it's necessary, especially when you now have a state of emergency and they are housing these special prisoners, down at the base.
Right. Now, Minister Sturge, a lot of questions have been centering around him and the kind of support he had in the election, the sort of, supporters that you saw surrounding him and so on. And I noticed you said, is it that the PNM is not afraid of the gangs? I think you said that in your opening statement.
No, I didn't say that. No,
Wait,
no.
you said something just now. Let me find it.
No.
All right, you said the government should make every effort to let the criminals know that the government is not afraid of criminals and gangsters. Right, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
Yes,
That's okay.
right. And so what I'm saying is, the question I really want to ask is, are you suggesting that there is some fear in certain elements of the government that persons that they previously were associated with making demands that they cannot fulfill, and that this is the...
Well, I mean, I read extensively for that reason, because, I mean, they were saying that there is this lawyer that has some kind of affiliation with the UNC. And actually, the article was at pains to give all of these details, that there were persons who were demanding contracts, and the information is specific to his constituency. Right? I mean, they talked about people pelting, and they talk about, I mean, they're giving us all the information,
Right,
It's all there in the public domain. So they are the ones who are clearly saying that there seems to be some sort of deliberate attempt from certain persons to insist from him and demand, contracts. So the question we ask yourself, why are those particular persons from his constituency making those demands?
You think that putting him in that particular ministry may have been not a wise decision?
Well, I cannot see that. That is for the Prime Minister to decide. But do you recall him saying he didn't want a ministry? Yes. So the question is, he didn't want a ministry? Yes, sure. Any other questions?
Hi, morning. The situation that you would have pointed out with Minister Sage, we also saw in the article where there were threats to his children.
Yes.
And they attend public schools. What are they going to do where those schools are concerned, where that school is concerned, where his children attend? Are they going to, what security measures are they going to put in place for that?
Yeah.
Um, that
Well, listen, I mean, standard protocols. I mean, if and that's why we're saying, listen, this is a serious issue, right? We are not taking it lightly. The point I'm making is they have the information. That's the point. They have it. They have shared all of it with the public. Yes.
But let me just add some information that you may not have. It has been standard practice for the relatives of ministers of national security to have special protection, including children at school. Okay?
okay.
That's a fact. I can state that without contradiction. That's the standard practice, that the children of ministers of national security would get special protection from special branch and so on when they attend school. Okay?
All right, thank you. Ms. Dr. Dolly, you would have talked about a program that would have been happening during the vacation, school vacation. You want to elaborate a little bit about it for those of us who may not be aware of the success or what the program was entailed, because you shared it with us, but there are some of us who are totally oblivious to what the program would have had that would have assisted our children to be so successful at the CXC.
Very quickly, that program, the Vacation Revision Program, was a program put in place, so none of the children who would have been involved in that program would have written CXC as yet. That was a transition program. It was part of the wider strategy to assist with our students, reintegrating them back to school when they came out in 2022. So it really was a combination of back to school activities. There was social element to it, where they had the school support officers working with students, and there was also the curriculum element of it. And it was designed so that students can get accustomed at a transition between primary and secondary school, and it was specifically for students who were heading into Form 1 and for students who had gotten under 50% in the SE. So it was to assist them with transition, as well as to assist them with some of the curriculum issues and some of the main issues, math and English, and also there was a social element to assist them as well, so their transition would be more successful.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Imbert, you were sharing with us some information about the company that has come over to do some drilling exam, and you're saying to us that they have some questions to answer where the procurement process is concerned.
I raised a number of points. Yeah. What I said is that we need to know whether this was by competitive bidding or whether it was sole select procurement. In other words, did they go directly to Exxon, or did Exxon come directly to them and agreement was reached without competitive bidding? That's question number one. Question number two, what are the terms? And question number three, when does the government really expect to get revenue from that arrangement if oil is discovered at all? Because first you have to discover oil. This is a virgin field, right? It's virgin. By that I mean it hasn't been surveyed. You have to survey, it's a green field. I think that's the politically correct term now. It's a green field. You have to survey it, then you have to drill and see if you find oil. And if you find oil, that you've found it in commercially viable quantities. And after you do all of that, then you go into production. You're talking 10, 12 years, okay? So it's fine for them to make a big thing out of it, but it's not going to happen in this parliamentary term. In this term of the UNC, they will get no revenue from that oil arrangement.
Okay, my last question to the opposition leader. So all of this revelation that we have gotten about Minister Sturge, are you calling upon the Commissioner of Police to give us some sort of information of how is he going to move forward with this revelation of things that are being said or information that's being put out in the public domain?
Well, I'm not going to call any commissioner of police to do his work. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if they're providing the information, obviously they are doing their work. But I'm simply saying that the fact that you have all of that information in the public domain, what we are clear about is that they know exactly what is taking place. And if they are doing their work, then we will wait to see exactly what will happen.
Will
any
will
other-
the PNM be participating in the day of prayer?
Well,
But in
listen,
other words, if
This- I mean, it's one thing to say we're going to have a day of prayer. I mean, we are awaiting some more particulars. As I said, prayer is something you do daily, but this is something special. So in other words, I say reflection. So I do not know if they're going to give us some more information. You know, we have had days of prayer before. We have had it in the, you know, if I recall correctly, would have been in the Savannah. They're in different places.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they haven't really given anything save and except to say a day of prayer.
But I would say they need a lot of prayers.
Yes. Any other questions,
The
please?
Exxon thing, correct me if is that the thing that was being worked on by the PNM before?
I have absolutely no idea. I saw newspaper reports where the former Minister of Energy said
Right.
that Exxon did come to them
Yeah.
in November.
December, right, November, yeah.
And that there was a sort of agreement in principle. But
Right.
I don't want to talk out of turn.
Okay.
I don't want to talk out of turn. All right?
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I know former MP Monroe isn't here for Tokosangi Grandi, but during your term in office, did you have any similar problems with respect to threats, shakedown issues from?
From MP Monroe?
No, well, towards MP Monroe.
Oh, yeah, no, no, that's what I meant. As it relates
Yeah.
to MP Monroe.
Yeah.
No, no. I
Nothing
mean,
like
but
that.
let us say, I mean, you know that, okay, if I go back to issues of quarrying, right, you know that quarrying is an issue that, I mean, you've had people charged, you know, if you recall that the Minister of Energy, we actually debated something in Parliament as it relates to that, to increase the fines and penalties for persons in quarrying. So quarrying has always been a very contentious issue. But specifically in relation to NP Monroe, I personally cannot say that.
Nothing like death threats you would have received.
No,
Okay.
I personally cannot say that. Okay, thank you very much.